in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. My husband has been reborn. The first thing he did after his rebirth was run to save Charlotte Yuan, leaving me trapped beneath a fallen beam. In the previous life, Charlotte had died in a fire in the library. When the house caught fire, no one knew she was still inside. Watching my husband run away into the distance, I suddenly felt a sense of relief wash over me. In this life, I no longer had to bear the shackles of a life debt, no longer had to be a servant to the Thorne family. In my past life, I spent 10 years as Sebastian Thorne's wife. No matter how cold and cruel he was to me, I still devoted myself to fulfilling the duties of a wife, simply because he had saved my life. That year, I attended a banquet at my dear friend's house to celebrate her younger brother's first birthday. They had invited relatives and close friends to join the celebration, but unexpectedly, a fire broke out. The flames erupted violently and quickly spread throughout the entire estate. The ladies were trapped in the West Hall. What made it worse was that a burning beam fell from the ceiling and struck my right leg, pinning me down so I couldn't escape. Watching the other ladies panic and flee to safety, I thought I was going to die right there. But then Sebastian rushed in, helped lift the beam off me, and carried me to safety. From that day on, everyone praised the story of how I received a second life thanks to Sebastian. He had risked his own life to save me, and I, to repay this life-saving grace, chose to marry him. It truly was a beautiful story. At the time, all I knew was that a young woman named Charlotte had perished in that fire. She was the daughter of a concubine and had never received much attention. That day, almost no one at the banquet remembered her. Only when the lady of the house frantically counted the guests did they realize she was missing. After searching everywhere, they finally found her body in the library, where only a few bronze bookcases remained, charred by the flames. The jade pendant and jewelry on the body confirmed the victim's identity. It was only after my marriage that I learned Sebastian and Charlotte had once shared a romantic connection. Sebastian had always wanted to marry Charlotte, but her lowly status made her unsuitable for him. His family refused to approve the match, so the two lovers made a pact. After Sebastian married his primary wife, he would bring Charlotte into the household as a concubine, honoring their feelings for each other. Who could have known that these star-crossed lovers, destined to be together, would instead be separated by death itself? After our marriage, whenever Sebastian thought of this, he was filled with endless regret and sorrow for a long time. The elders of the Thorne family, who had once looked down on Charlotte's humble origins, now began to reminisce about her virtues. You, the living, cannot compare to the dead. Moreover, after my right leg was crushed by that beam, it left a scar. The Thorne family believed that with such a defect, Sebastian's willingness to marry me was already the greatest act of kindness. Not to mention, I owed my very life to Sebastian. I acknowledged this debt, so no matter how difficult the Thorne family made things for me, I endured it all. I came here to repay a debt, and these hardships were what I deserved. Later, Sebastian even set up a memorial tablet for Charlotte with the title of equal wife. He told me I had to live well, to live for Charlotte's sake, because my life had been exchanged for hers. If I didn't live well, the person I would fame most would be Charlotte. This, I did not accept. The only person who saved my life was Sebastian. Charlotte and I had no connection whatsoever. She wasn't killed by me, nor did she die trying to save me. Sebastian's official career progressed smoothly, but he was never happy, at least not when he was with me. He constantly mourned Charlotte, so I selected several concubines who resembled Charlotte in appearance and temperament for him. I treated those concubines very well. Because Sebastian liked them, I liked them too. Later, when these concubines bore children, I claimed all the children as my own, registering them in the family records as legitimate offspring. One day, another concubine was in labor. Sebastian and I rushed through the rain to visit her. When we reached the pavilion by the rear courtyard, I slipped. In my panic, I accidentally pulled Sebastian with me. Neither of us could keep our footing, and we both tumbled down the slope into the lake. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn 10 years earlier, right back to the moment of that fire. Sebastian, caring about nothing else, rushed straight from the entrance into the library. I let out a gentle breath, my entire body feeling light with relief. I gathered all my strength and pushed the beam off myself, then crawled desperately toward the exit. By the time I finally crawled out through the door and someone found me and pulled me to safety, I realized something profound. I could survive without Sebastian's rescue after all. And Sebastian could finally make up for the regret of his previous life by saving Charlotte. A love lost and regained becomes even more precious. Sebastian even brought Charlotte back to the Thorne estate to recover and was determined to marry her as his wife. Everyone knew about Sebastian and Charlotte's secret relationship. Some praised the two for their deep, golden love that transcended social conventions, while others scorned them for their shamelessness. Still others envied how someone of Charlotte's humble origins could win the love of the eldest son of the Thorne family. None of this had anything to do with me anymore. I held a steaming bowl of chicken soup with angelica root, savoring every sip with satisfaction. After my rebirth, I had eaten 18 whole chickens, roasted chicken, grilled chicken, braised chicken, boiled chicken. Not a day went by without chicken. Because Lord Thorne didn't like eating chicken, in my previous life after marrying into the Thorne family, I hadn't tasted a single bite of chicken for 10 years. I had thought that in this life, I would have nothing more to do with the Thorne family. But unexpectedly, today my mother came to find me with great excitement. "Eleanor, do you still remember young Master Thorne, Sebastian?" I nearly dropped the bowl of chicken soup in my hands. "Don't remember," I replied calmly. "How can you forget? Last year at the winter plum blossom viewing, Lady Chen was making inquiries, wanting to arrange a match between young Master Thorne and her daughter. I truly knew nothing about this. Every year in winter, the capital held several plum blossom viewing events, which were really just excuses for gatherings where young men and women of marriageable age could see each other. I rarely attended and had no idea what had happened at the plum garden. Back then, I also had intentions regarding young Master Thorne. I was planning that after the new year, our two families would exchange birth charts and arrange the match. Everything had been discussed, but then the Thorne family never responded again. A storm was rising in my heart. This meant that even without Sebastian saving me, the Thorne family had already intended to come to the Hartwell estate to propose marriage. It was only because Sebastian was so insistent on marrying Charlotte that the Thorne family couldn't dissuade him and delayed the proposal. Later, both sides agreed to wait until Sebastian married his primary wife before bringing Charlotte into the household as a concubine. I set down my bowl of chicken soup. Perhaps the Thorne family also felt they weren't worthy of the Hartwell family, so they abandoned that plan. Though the Thorne family was a prestigious household, by Lord Thorne's generation, they had gradually declined. Meanwhile, the Hartwell family was in its prime. We had no shortage of uncles, brothers, and cousins serving as officials at court, and my father had just been promoted to Vice Minister of Rights. My mother looked displeased. "Eleanor, when did you become so harsh and practical?" The second uncle of the Thorne family was granted the title of general and defended the frontier with his own life, sacrificing himself for the nation. All the glory and wealth you enjoy now was bought with that man's life. It is the Hartwell family that is unworthy of the Thorne family, not the other way around. As my mother spoke, her eyes turned red. "Why get so worked up?" I immediately fell silent, not daring to say another word. My mother calmed her emotions and continued. "Today, the Thorne family sent someone to propose marriage. I've already had someone prepare your birth chart. Just waiting for an auspicious day to match it with young Master Thorne's chart. If there are no issues, this marriage can be settled." I had just taken a sip of tea and immediately spat it out. "Mother, does father know about this?" I asked him. My mother replied calmly. "He's busy with state affairs. How could he have time for such trivial matters?" My jaw dropped. When did my marriage become such a trivial matter? Marriages in noble families have always affected the bigger picture. "Mother, we should still discuss this with father first. Not to mention other things, but recently there have been many rumors circulating, saying that young Master Thorne already has someone in his heart, that he has pledged himself to some young lady. If that's truly the case and they still came to the Hartwell family to propose, what does that mean?" My mother showed no concern. "Those are just baseless rumors. Even if it were true, that woman is not worthy of being mentioned. The one they want to marry as the primary wife is still you, which is why they came to our house to propose." I really wanted to split my mother's head open to see what was inside. In my previous life, Sebastian had saved my life. My father had originally planned to show gratitude by offering some silver or helping Sebastian advance in his official career. But it was my mother who strongly advocated that I repay him with marriage, constantly trying to persuade me. She said Sebastian was elegant and refined, of noble character. The Thorne family was a line of integrity, and they had a general who sacrificed himself for the country. Marrying into such a family was a blessing earned through lifetimes of virtue. At that time, I was young and innocent, and I couldn't help but be moved. Later, after marrying into the Thorne family, I discovered Sebastian was not a good person at all. I had once sought help from my maternal family, expressing my wish for divorce. But my mother said that since I was already a member of the Thorne family, I had to stay there whether I lived or died. My life was saved by Sebastian, and I could never repay that debt in this lifetime. At that time, my father had fallen gravely ill, and I felt utterly desperate and powerless. What a pity that after 10 years of tempering, I was no longer that naive young lady who would blush with shame at the slightest word. I laughed softly. Mother, you must be joking. That young Master Thorne, before even getting married, has been philandering everywhere, his reputation spreading far and wide. No respectable young lady would be willing to marry him. Yet the Thorne family still dares to come to the Hartwell family to propose. This matter is truly laughable. I must tell father and my uncles so they too can have a good laugh. While laughing, I stood up and walked out, my steps quick and light, ignoring my mother stamping her feet in anger behind me. Of course, father wasn't at the estate at this time. I hid in the bamboo grove to calm my mind and think about this matter. Sebastian was reborn. He clearly didn't love me, so why didn't he stop his family from coming to propose? He could just keep his Charlotte and live his whole life. Why wouldn't he let me go? It was simply because the Thorne family still looked down on Charlotte's humble origins and wanted to marry a young lady from a prestigious family as the primary wife. It was simply because they wanted to use my father's support to advance Sebastian's career, just like in the previous life. It was simply because they wanted me to continue being a servant in the Thorne household. I ground my teeth until my jaw ached, the silk handkerchief in my hand twisted to shreds. That evening, when father returned to the estate, I told him about the Thorne family's marriage proposal. He also scolded my mother for acting foolishly. Though the Thorne family has a distinguished reputation, this young Master Thorne has no achievements whatsoever, and furthermore, there are many unsavory rumors about him. How can such a person be considered a good match? Eleanor is right. For him to propose to our family is indeed a joke. My mother wouldn't relent. How is young Master Thorne not a good match? Who hasn't been romantic in their youth? Moreover, his second uncle sacrificed himself for the country on the battlefield. Shouldn't the descendant of such a hero be helped? Help him how? By using her entire life. Father and I looked at each other, both completely speechless. She's right, she reminded me. In the future, at court, I can look after the Thorne family more. As for Eleanor's marriage, we'll reconsider it. Father cut off my mother's words, and she had no choice but to stop speaking. I don't know if it was because of this rebirth that some things had changed, but my right leg, which had been burned before, healed completely this time after treatment, leaving no scar at all. I joyfully expressed my gratitude to the physician. Thank you for your excellent medical skills. But the physician looked at me strangely. This wound was actually quite shallow. As long as you apply the proper burn ointment, after some time it will heal without leaving a mark. Then why did I have such a large scar in my previous life? Because of that scar, Sebastian criticized me many times, even telling his mother about it. Lady Margaret Thorne said I was someone with a major defect, and that being able to become the primary wife of a noble family was already extremely fortunate. She said I wasn't worthy of Sebastian. Suspicion welled up within me. I asked, under what circumstances would a wound leave a scar? The physician, while writing a prescription, said absent-mindedly, as long as you don't follow those baseless folk remedies and use charcoal ash or wood powder on the wound, it absolutely won't leave a scar. I felt as if struck by lightning. In my previous life after Sebastian saved me, my mother urged me to repay him with marriage while also finding something to apply to my wound, claiming it was a secret family remedy for burns. Afterward, the wound scabbed over and left a scar. My mother then said, A body with scars makes it difficult to marry into a noble family. The Thorne family's willingness to marry you is already the best possible match for you. I married Sebastian not only because of his life-saving grace, but also because that scar made me feel deeply inferior, and I ultimately accepted the marriage. Thinking back now, my mother came from a prestigious family. There were estate physicians in our household. Having grown up seeing and hearing such things, she couldn't possibly not know that those folk remedies were unreliable. Unless she had already decided early on that I would marry into the Thorne family. That way, even though my family status was higher than Sebastian's, because of the defect on my body, I would have no choice but to humble myself and marry him. But why? Why was my mother so obsessed with having me marry into the Thorne family? Even though I lived a life worse than death in the Thorne household, she wouldn't let me divorce and return home. She only forced me to willingly and wholeheartedly be a daughter-in-law of the Thorne family. At that time, my heart had died toward Sebastian, and I no longer sought help from my maternal family. Instead, after a while, I began sending more women into Sebastian's quarters. Didn't they want me to be a virtuous wife and good mother? With so many concubines, wasn't that enough to keep Sebastian happy? As for whether he knew restraint or whether he exhausted his health, that wasn't something an old wife like me could interfere with. After my mother learned of this, she made an exception to come find me, but not to comfort me. Rather to berate me harshly. She scolded me for being useless, for failing to keep Sebastian's heart, and even blamed me for bringing concubines to Sebastian, for failing to maintain a relationship of one lifetime, one love, one couple. It was as if I had wronged her somehow, causing her to scold me mercilessly. I found her incomprehensible, and secretly rolled my eyes in contempt. Seeing that I didn't respond, my mother said something else, something that seemed very important, but unfortunately, at that time I was calculating which courtesan house I should visit to find someone who looked like Charlotte, preferably someone with an illness, to send to Sebastian. So I couldn't remember what she said. Memories of the past flooded back, and I felt a chill run through my entire body. This cold wasn't from the 10 years of hell I'd endured before, but from realizing that my closest relative was plotting to harm me. Qingming Festival was approaching. My mother told me to accompany her to North Mountain for a spring outing, saying there was a tea house at the foot of the mountain famous for its Qingchuan cakes. I happily agreed. Along the way, mother and daughter chatted pleasantly, as if there had never been any conflict over the family's marriage proposal. When our carriage reached the foot of the mountain, I suggested stopping at the tea house to enjoy the Qingchuan cakes, but my mother urged me to climb the mountain instead. I sneered inwardly, becoming more certain that this trip had hidden motives. Because of the warm weather, many people had come North Mountain for spring outings. Along the way, we encountered several ladies and young misses we knew who wanted to join us, but my mother skillfully declined them all. When we reached a fork in the road, my mother pointed to a deserted small path and said, "Over there is a peach orchard. Right now the peach blossoms are in full bloom, absolutely beautiful." I smiled and asked, "If it's so beautiful, why are there so few people going that way?" My mother stammered, "Perhaps many people just don't know about it yet." I said nothing more, just followed behind my mother, accompanied by maid and nannies. 6 people in total. The small path wound through desolate terrain. My mother's expression gradually grew tense while I remained calm. Suddenly, 2 masked men jumped out from the right side ahead, holding gleaming daggers, blocking our path. "Don't move. Bandits." The bandits also seemed extremely nervous, their voices stammering. I slightly curled my lip in a cold smile. "Are you robbing us of money, beauty, or lives?" Seeing that I wasn't afraid, the 2 bandits became somewhat flustered. One pointed his dagger at me. "Behave yourself, or we'll take your life." My mother immediately held me tightly, continuously begging the bandits not to harm her daughter's life. She's only 16 years old. If anything happens to her, I don't want to live either. Before she could finish, we suddenly heard a shout from the side. Bandits with such audacity, daring to rob innocent women in broad daylight. A figure wielding a sword rushed over from the side. I looked carefully. Who else could it be but Sebastian? He turned his head to glance at me. "Ladies, don't be afraid, I'm here." Looking at his appearance, I suddenly felt nauseated. My stomach churned, and I coughed dryly a few times. My mother thought I was frightened and gently patted my back to comfort me. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. It's young Master Thorne. He's come to rescue us. I pushed my mother's hand away, turned around, and called out loudly toward the rear. Why haven't you come out yet to capture these bandits? I'll double your payment and give each of you an extra 10 tals of silver. As soon as I finished speaking, 10 burly men came charging out from behind, rushing forward to subdue the 2 bandits. I pointed at Sebastian. Take him too. They're all in this together. Before Sebastian could understand what was happening, he was tied up like a dumpling. My mother was so shocked it took her a long time to speak. What's going on? Who are these people? They're the porters I hired from the foot of the mountain. Every one of them is tall and strong. I told them I wanted to go up the mountain with my elder for a spring outing, but I was afraid of encountering snakes, insects, or vermin in the mountains, so I wanted to hire people for protection. However, I was also afraid they would disturb your enjoyment of the scenery, Mother, so I told them they could only follow from a distance and absolutely mustn't let you discover them. These porters are all villagers from the surrounding area. Their homes and families are nearby. They're well known, so there's no worry they'll turn against us. Moreover, the price is very reasonable. I originally thought we might only encounter insects or snakes. I never expected to run into bandits. I find myself quite fortunate. Escort all of them to the magistrate's office, I said with a cold laugh. My mother suddenly panicked. We can't take them to the magistrate. We absolutely can't. Taking them to the magistrate will ruin your reputation. Please rest assured, Mother. More than 10 people here can all testify that these bandits neither touched me nor did anything improper. How could they possibly ruin my reputation? After I spoke, the porters all caroused in agreement. Please rest assured, young miss. We will all testify. No, no. My mother saw that they were about to be escorted away and hurriedly tried to stop them. Going to court will definitely affect you. It's inevitable that people will gossip, and by then, I'm afraid even your father will be implicated. I pretended to think about it. You're right. Actually, I had no real intention of taking these people to court anyway. If we investigate who was behind this, I fear the Hartwell family would become the talk of the entire capital. But just letting them go like this seems too easy, doesn't it? I looked at the bandits with sharp eyes. Then give them a good beating, a truly painful one. Best to their arms and legs so they can never do evil again in the future. My mother had just breathed a sigh of relief when her face turned deathly pale again. A small lesson is enough. Breaking their arms and legs wouldn't be appropriate. After all, they haven't actually done anything to us. Over there, Sebastian, bound tightly, was struggling desperately. Eleanor Hartwell, it's me. I'm Sebastian. I glanced at him coldly. Sebastian or Sebastian, whoever, I don't care. Beat them. Beat them to death for all I care. The clubs in those burly men's hands rained down like a tide upon the 3 of them. Their agonized screams rang out, making me feel incredibly satisfied. When I returned to the estate, I was even whistling. My mother claimed she had caught a cold and lay in bed for many days straight. She wouldn't allow me to visit her sickbed, not even to pay morning respects, saying she wanted quiet rest. In truth, she simply didn't want to see me. This suited me perfectly. I immediately sent an invitation to my dear friend Catherine Zhang. Her family had temporarily moved to the Western Gardens after the fire incident and had just moved back a few days ago after the house was repaired. Since she had returned, I naturally had to visit her. In my previous life, I never had another chance to see her. Shortly after I married into the Thorne family, she followed her parents to the western regions, completely cutting off contact with me. Eleanor, I'm so terribly sorry. Last time you were frightened because of our house. Catherine was full of remorse when she saw me. I shook my head with a smile. Fortunately, there was no real danger. By the way, did they ever find the cause of that fire? Catherine's expression turned serious as she lowered her voice. After Father investigated, he did discover several suspicious points, but since no one was injured or killed, the matter wasn't pursued further. I immediately became interested. Tell me about it. Catherine recounted that after the incident, when the family examined the fire's origin, they discovered quite a bit of wood shavings at the base of the west wall, with charcoal ash scattered all around. Before the incident occurred, the west hall had just been repainted with a fresh coat of paint. The painters had sanded the beams and columns before painting, So it was possible these wood shavings were carelessly left behind by the workers rather than deliberately placed by someone. As for the charcoal ash, at that time, to celebrate her younger brother's first birthday, their household had prepared many fireworks and firecrackers to set off. It was possible that a servant, while fetching the firecrackers, broke a package and caused the powder to spill everywhere. The fire wouldn't have grown so large originally, but it just so happened that the weather had turned cold, and the paint layer on the beams hadn't completely dried yet. When it met the flames, it caught fire immediately. After hearing Catherine's account, I couldn't help but furrow my brow. So many coincidences. And what about Miss Yuan? Why did she go into the library? I remember the Yuan family was just a small household. Their position was merely a minor 7th-rank official. They had no connection with your family. Logically, they shouldn't have been invited to the banquet at all. Lady Yuan came accompanying Lady Qin. You know, Lady Qin is a relative of my eldest aunt. Lady Yuan had been cultivating a relationship with Lady Qin, presumably asking for her help, wanting to use this opportunity to make connections. As for why Miss Yuan went into the library alone, we really don't know. We originally wanted to ask her a few questions, but after being rescued by young Master Thorne, she stayed on at the Thorne household. Even the Yuan family can't see her. Honestly, Eleanor, the way the Thorne family conducts itself is truly improper. It's only because the Yuan family has no reputation and wanted to curry favor with the nobility. If it had been any other family with a distinguished reputation, young Master Thorne acting so presumptuously would definitely have caused trouble. I silently noted the name Lady Qin in my mind. I remembered that in my previous life, when I was married, Lady Qin also came to present wedding gifts. At that time, I learned she was my mother's close friend from their youth. Because she had followed her husband to a distant posting early on, it wasn't until the past 2 years that she returned to the capital and renewed her relationship with my mother. In the capital, it was nothing unusual for noble ladies to associate with each other. But someone who could connect my mother with Charlotte, that was truly strange. When parting with Catherine, I reminded her that even if she went to the western regions, she must keep in regular contact with me. Catherine laughed. My father only finalized this assignment today, and you already know about it. Your ears are truly sharp. I joked for a few moments to brush it off, and was about to turn away when Catherine called out to me. Oh, that reminds me. The head chef your mother recommended this time was truly excellent. Thanks to her, our banquet maintained considerable dignity. My mother has always wanted to come in person to thank your mother. An uneasy feeling suddenly rose within me, and I immediately asked, when you mention the head chef, are you referring to the cook whose ancestors once worked in the imperial kitchen? Catherine smiled and replied, that's exactly her. It's her. Chef Mei was originally a cook in my maternal grandfather's household. Later, when my maternal grandfather moved to the old capital, she didn't follow but stayed here instead. Every banquet, large or small, in our household was handled by Chef Mei. In my previous life, when I married into the Thorne family, my mother worried I wouldn't take good care of Sebastian and specifically asked Chef Mei to teach me a few things. My mother instructed me that I had to do everything with my own hands, cook with my own hands. Only then could I be considered a capable wife. Yet throughout my mother's entire life, she had never set foot in the kitchen, never cooked a single bowl of soup for my father. Sitting in the carriage, I closed my eyes and tapped lightly on my thigh. Countless puzzle pieces appeared in my mind, seemingly unconnected, yet revealing connections everywhere. It seemed there was something very important that I had overlooked. I was trying hard to remember when the carriage suddenly stopped abruptly. What's the matter? I told the maid to go check. The maid stepped out to look, then returned saying it was young Master Thorne. Sebastian had blocked the carriage, saying he had something he wanted to tell the young miss. My expression immediately turned cold. Hadn't he been beaten enough? That day, those porters had ultimately shown mercy and hadn't broken their arms and legs after all. I had no desire to see Sebastian, but thinking that him blocking my carriage in the middle of the street would cause gossip, I reluctantly suppressed my disgust and stepped down from the carriage. Sebastian's face still bore bruises. Seeing me descend, he spoke to me with an arrogant air. Eleanor, how long do you intend to keep causing trouble? If you continue making a scene, I won't marry you anymore. I furrowed my brow. You truly have an incredibly thick face. Young Master Thorne, what kind of poison wind has struck you to make you speak such nonsense? You marry me. Are you even worthy? Does your family not own a scale? Don't you know how little you weigh? Sebastian looked at me in disbelief, then his expression turned dark. Are you angry with me because I brought Charlotte back to the Thorne household? Is that it? Rest assured, the position of primary wife is still yours. The dignity you deserve, the Thorne family won't deny you. I shook my head, he was truly beyond help. Sebastian. Today you blocked my carriage without cause in the middle of the street and spoke filthy words that insulted my reputation. I will go back and tell my father, my uncles, my older brothers, and the entire Hartwell clan to unite in bringing charges against your Thorne family. You just wait and see. With that, I turned and stepped back into the carriage, leaving Sebastian standing there bewildered. You weren't like this before. What was I like before? In the early years after marrying into the Thorne family, I always maintained propriety and was filial to my husband's parents. Even though Sebastian was as cold as iron toward me, I still devoted myself wholeheartedly to doing everything with my own hands. Because of the life-saving debt, my father also supported Sebastian, helping him advance smoothly in his official career. Later, when my father fell ill and resigned from office, no longer able to help him on his career path, the Thorne family turned around and abused me even more cruelly. Standing for hours in the snow to pay mourning respects to my in-laws became a daily routine. When Sebastian's younger sister wanted to eat fresh fish in the dead of winter, they forced me to go down to the river, break through the ice, and catch fish. This was not uncommon either. My mother-in-law feared the cold but found the brazier's heat too uncomfortable, so she forced me to place my bare hands on the hot brazier until they were warm, then use those hands to warm her feet. My hands, already full of wounds and cracks from the bitter cold, placed on the scorching brazier. The pain burned and itched unbearably. But I had to endure it, year after year. My father-in-law liked eating glutinous rice cakes fried by my own hands. Each time I had to fry them until the outer layer cracked, and each time I had to fry more than 10 pieces. The hot oil splattered all over my face and hands. In truth, father-in-law didn't actually enjoy eating them. He would only take one bite, then feed the rest to the dogs. At every meal, I had to stand beside them, serving the entire family until they finished eating, and only then was I allowed to eat the leftovers. Watching me eat leftover food, my mother-in-law would laugh and say, "You're still fortunate. If Sebastian hadn't saved your life that year, how would you have the blessing to eat these leftover scraps?" Those words stuck in my throat like a lump. In the 5th year after our marriage, my father passed away. I returned home for mourning. I cried ceaselessly, but my mother still urged me. You should quickly return to the Thorne household. Sebastian is waiting at home. You must treat Sebastian and his family well to repay his life-saving grace. I asked chokingly, life-saving grace? Always life-saving grace. What if I don't repay it? My mother ground her teeth. If you don't repay it, after death you'll descend to hell. So it's just descending to hell. I suddenly stopped crying and wiped away my tears. From that point on, I began continuously bringing concubines to Sebastian. Whenever he showed signs of weakness, I sought out numerous secret remedies for him, all purchased from traveling merchants. My mother-in-law feared cold and chills, so I used my own money to buy fresh crabs from merchants, extracted the crab innards, minced them finely, and mixed them into the bird's nest soup she consumed daily, taking such thorough care of her. My father-in-law enjoyed fried rice cakes, so I altered the recipe, adding lard, white sugar, and sesame seeds, making the cakes incredibly fragrant. Every day my father-in-law would eat several pieces. I also learned from Chef May how to make famous dishes like crystal pork trotters, jellied meat, and braised pork with preserved vegetables. Every day I changed the dishes, presenting them at the dinner table. By the time I was reborn, Sebastian had become someone strong on the outside but weak within. My mother-in-law's heart disease grew increasingly severe, and she also developed serious asthma. Just walking a few steps left her breathless, and even speaking became difficult. As for my father-in-law, he already showed signs of stroke, his speech slurred, his expression dull. Although I secretly drank contraceptive tea and had no children of my own, under my name there was no shortage of legitimate children. If my in-laws and Sebastian were all gone, I would be able to openly take control of the household. Unfortunately, human calculations can't match heaven's plans. In the end, I didn't wait for that day before I was reborn. So how was I different from before? I was never a kind person to begin with. I was exactly the kind of person who deserved to descend to hell. When I returned home, I immediately fulfilled my promise, seeking out father, my uncles, and my older brothers. I recounted everything Sebastian had done that day and begged them to demand justice on my behalf. Everyone was utterly furious. Sebastian comes from a prestigious family yet lacks such proper upbringing. The Thorne family's decline is not without reason. This is truly outrageous. Sebastian's actions not only offended our young sister but also destroyed her reputation. This is extremely detestable. Tomorrow at court, I will definitely submit a memorial impeaching the Thorne family. No one blamed me. On the contrary, everyone wanted to demand justice for me. Having family protection felt truly wonderful. In my previous life, I had also wanted to seek help from my family, but my mother repeatedly stopped me, saying I was being petty over trivial matters, that I would ruin the relationship between the two families and cause unrest in the household. Without backing from my maternal family, the Thorne family looked down on me even more and mistreated me worse. At that time, I thought my family no longer cared about me, that they tacitly agreed I married into the Thorne family to repay a life debt, and all grievances were things I deserved to bear. Looking back now, perhaps only my mother thought that way. That evening, my mother stormed in to condemn me. Without waiting for me to say a word, she slapped me hard across the face. "Eleanor, you are truly vicious. How dare you incite the family to submit memorials at court impeaching the Thorne family? How dare you do this? What is your heart made of? How did I end up with a daughter like you?" My mother said, "If you have any conscience left, come with me immediately and tell your father clearly that you harbored romantic feelings for young Master Thorne, but young Master Thorne had no affection for you. So out of shame and anger you falsely accused him." I lowered my head and rubbed my swollen, aching face. In my heart, something seemed to snap with a sound, breaking apart. I think it was perhaps the blood bond connecting me to my mother. Raising my head to look into my mother's angry eyes, I said calmly, "Yes, mother. I will go explain everything to father." Hearing me say this, the fire in my mother's eyes gradually subsided. Looking at my swollen, red face, her expression became somewhat uncomfortable. "Eleanor, mother shouldn't have struck you. It's just that you truly went too far. You must remember that mother always has your best interests at heart. If you create conflict with young Master Thorne this time, even offending them, how can you have peaceful days after marrying in?" I didn't argue, responding coldly, "I understand." After my mother left satisfied, I immediately went to father's study and talked with him for a very long time. The next day, everything was quiet. The third day, nothing happened. After several more days, seeing everything remained calm, my mother finally felt at ease. A few days later, someone reported to me that my mother had gone to Osmanthus Pavilion. I immediately followed. Osmanthus Pavilion was a business under my mother's name, located in a rather secluded area. The first floor was the main hall, the second floor had elegant rooms, and the third floor didn't receive outside guests. It was only for receiving business partners. When I arrived at the entrance, I gave the young attendant guarding outside an ingot of silver. "How long has she been inside?" the attendant said while secretly leading me through the side door. "She just went in, miss. When we received word to prepare the third floor, this humble servant immediately informed you." I nodded. "Don't let the manager know I've arrived." Upon reaching the third floor, I had just sat down when I heard voices arguing in the adjacent room. "What do you mean by this? You said we had to create a hero, rescuing beauty situation, had my son waiting there, yet you let him get beaten until his face was black and blue." My eyes narrowed. Even if this shrill voice turned to ash, I would recognize it. This was Sebastian's mother, Lady Margaret. "A few days ago, your daughter even dared to humiliate my son in the middle of the street. What does she think she is?" "Vivienne, if you don't want marry your daughter into our family, then don't use the Thorne family as a joke. There are countless women wanting to marry into the Thorne household." Facing Lady Margaret's fury, my mother's tone became somewhat ingratiating. The incident at North Mountain that day was just an accident. I didn't expect Eleanor would arrange for people to follow from behind. As for Eleanor being disrespectful to your son, I've already disciplined her. Rest assured, My daughter will definitely marry into the Thorne family. Lady Margaret showed her displeasure. You scheme so much. First the fire, then the robbery. If you truly want to marry your daughter over, wouldn't just a marriage contract suffice? My mother sighed. You don't understand. My daughter appears gentle on the outside, but deep in her bones she's proud and stubborn, exactly like her father. If your family came directly to propose marriage, first, it might not succeed, and second, even if she married in, she'd be difficult to control. But think about it. If the Thorne family held a debt of gratitude over her, things would be different. Not only would she be devoted wholeheartedly to your family, but even her father would fully support your son's career. Don't you want Sebastian to have a smooth official career path and rapid advancement in the future? Lady Margaret was clearly persuaded. What you say makes sense, but this attempt has failed completely. What else can be done? My mother showed confidence. I still have one more method. Next month is the Dragon Boat Festival. The Empress Dowager will bestow medicinal baths upon the officials. When that time comes, I showed no emotion, silently listening to the two of them plotting in the room. When they finally left, I left as well. Returning to the estate, I calmly changed my clothes, removed the jewelry from my hair, then accepted a cup of tea from the maid's hands and drank a few sips. When the maid departed, I was left alone in the room. I sat upright in my chair, my fingers beginning to tremble in waves, then my arms and shoulders, until finally my entire body shook uncontrollably. My heart flooded with fear and indignation. How could I possibly escape when I was only 16 years old? If I were still the me from 10 years ago, a young woman who didn't understand the world, how could I possibly escape from such intricate scheming and calculations? I had thought countless times. If only I hadn't attended that banquet. If only there hadn't been that fire, I wouldn't have had to step into the pit of fire called the Thorne family. I blamed myself for not running fast enough, for not being clever enough, for not being able to escape the West Hall in time. I had experienced countless dreams where, in that inferno, I just kept running and running. If I managed to escape, I would laugh loudly. If I couldn't escape, I would wail in agony. But it turned out that whether I ran or not made no difference, because I had always been imprisoned in this cage, never once escaping it. The next morning, Father had leave from the office and stayed home. I went to find him, saying that with all the recent troubles, I wanted to visit my maternal grandfather's household to relax and conveniently pay respects to my mother's family. My maternal grandfather had moved the entire family to the old capital when I was only 3 years old. My mother had never visited, rarely even corresponding with them. Fortunately, Father regularly exchanged letters, maintaining that relationship. My mother immediately objected. The journey is so long and distant. You're a young lady. How can you possibly go? I then grasped my mother's hand. Then Mother should come with me. It's been so many years since Mother has seen grandfather, grandmother, and all the uncles. Doesn't Mother miss them? My mother's expression immediately turned ugly. This isn't a festival or holiday. Visiting them out of the blue, wouldn't that inconvenience your maternal family? Isn't it a holiday? Next month is the Dragon Boat Festival. We can go early to surprise grandfather and grandmother. Would that be acceptable, Mother? My mother's face grew even more unpleasant. Don't be so willful, doing whatever you please. But Father spoke up. I think Eleanor's suggestion is excellent. Father-in-law and mother-in-law have mentioned Eleanor many times in their letters. If you want to go, then go. But no. For the Dragon Boat Festival, the Empress Dowager will bestow medicinal baths upon the officials. If our family is absent, that wouldn't be appropriate at all. My mother still firmly objected. I responded, Mother is right. Then we'll return before the Dragon Boat Festival. It only takes 2 days' journey from the capital to the old capital. We can go for several days and still return before the Dragon Boat Festival. Father and I took turns persuading Mother until she finally relented. Fine then. But I caught a cold last time, and my body still hasn't fully recovered. I won't go with you. Please convey my regards to grandfather and grandmother on my behalf. Mother also specifically instructed me to remember to return before the Dragon Boat Festival. After 2 days of travel by water, I finally arrived at my maternal home. Grandmother embraced me, calling me her treasure over and over. When you left the capital, you were still a plump little child, yet in the blink of an eye you've grown into such a fine young lady. It's been 13 years. though the distance isn't that far. We haven't seen each other once. You look so beautiful, exactly like your mother when she was young. The first time I saw you, I thought Vivienne had returned. Learning that my mother was ill and couldn't come visit, disappointment showed clearly in grandmother's eyes. Not wanting the elderly woman to be troubled with sorrow, I immediately engaged in playful banter to change the subject and cheer her up. When the conversation turned to my marriage prospects, I recounted the Thorne family's marriage proposal as if it were a joke. Unexpectedly, grandmother's expression suddenly changed. The Thorne family? I can't believe after all these years, your mother is still so obstinate. Perhaps because it wasn't appropriate to speak ill of my mother in front of me, no matter how insistently I asked, grandmother refused to reveal anything more. Grandmother wouldn't speak, but there was one person who certainly would. My eldest aunt. Whenever grandmother mentioned my mother, Aunt Helen's face would show contempt, even disgust. After several days living together, the bond between Aunt Helen and me had grown much closer. That day, I went to find my aunt and got straight to the point, begging her to help save me. I recounted how my mother had repeatedly schemed and plotted, trying to force me to marry into the Thorne family. After hearing everything, Aunt Helen was absolutely furious. Utterly inhuman, to the point of harming even her own daughter. But that's exactly something Vivienne would do. Aunt Helen laughed coldly, then told me the story of years past. At that time, my maternal family still lived in the capital. The Thorne family had a young general, brave and imposing, who caused quite a few young ladies in the capital to harbor secret affections for him, including my mother. Back then, my mother tried every means to approach William Thorne, but he was focused solely on establishing merit on the battlefield, and paid no attention to matters of the heart, so he rejected your mother. Later, William departed for the frontier battlefield and never returned. Your mother was so heartbroken that she wanted to declare herself William's widow and enter the Thorne household to maintain chastity for him. At this point, Aunt Helen's eyes couldn't hide her contempt and disgust. She completely disregarded the honor of the Morrison family and gave no thought to the future of the Morrison grandchildren. She donned a red wedding gown, carried William's memorial tablet, and planned to marry into the Thorne family. Fortunately, your grandfather and your uncles discovered this in time, stopped her, and locked her in the rear courtyard. It wasn't until she turned 18 that your grandfather arranged the best possible marriage match, which was your father, and only then did they marry her off. The whole family finally breathed a sigh of relief. I was stunned. But before departing for battle, Uncle William had clearly rejected my mother. Why would she still declare herself his widow, and even plan to enter the Thorne household to maintain chastity for him? Didn't the Thorne family object? Aunt Helen grew even more contemptuous. Do you think the Thorne family are good people? After William died in battle, the Thorne family began spreading rumors that William had secretly harbored feelings for those young ladies he had previously rejected. But because the battlefield was so brutal and he feared implicating others, he cruelly rejected their affections. How utterly despicable. Even after his death, they wanted to exploit Uncle William's reputation to form alliances with powerful families and consolidate their own position. No one believed those words, right? The moment I spoke, I regretted it. Sure enough, Aunt Helen laughed mockingly. Of course no one was foolish enough to believe such words. But your mother believed them. She thought William had feelings for her, and didn't want to betray that sincere affection, so she was determined to enter the Thorne household to maintain chastity for him. Perhaps in her heart, she still resents us for preventing her from marrying into the Thorne family. All these years, she hasn't sent a single letter, let alone come to visit. On the contrary, your father is the one with a good heart. He's visited many times and even taken care of family members when they came to the capital for examinations. At this moment, I truly didn't know what to say. Aunt Helen looked at me with sympathy and patted my hand. Rest assured, child. Just stay here. Your marriage will be decided by your grandmother. I want to see what Vivienne can possibly do. I could only smile bitterly. I can't stay. There are more important matters waiting for me back home. Aunt Helen led me to a small courtyard. This is the courtyard your grandmother kept for your mother. The arrangement inside is exactly like your mother's room before she married, back in the capital. Your grandmother couldn't bear to throw away your mother's belongings, so she brought everything here. It's just a pity that your grandmother's devotion was wasted. Aunt Helen sighed. I stepped into the room. This place was bright and clean. Clearly someone regularly swept and tidied it. The room's arrangement was exquisite and elegant, with many items bearing the distinct marks of a young maiden. Walking around the room, I discovered quite a few furnishings arranged exactly like those in my own room. The outdated snow jade flower vase, yet my mother insisted I place it on my vanity table. Even the vanity table itself. I preferred one made of rosewood, but my mother stubbornly forced me to use one made of hongwali wood. Even the pattern on the bed curtains was identical. I walked over and touched the head of the bed, pulling it gently. Sure enough, there was a secret compartment containing some jewelry and a scroll of calligraphy painting. I opened the scroll wrapped in red silk. In the painting, a brave young man in spirited armor, wearing silver mail, holding a long spear, mounted on a magnificent horse, radiating heroic grandeur. Only, the young man's features bore an 80% resemblance to Sebastian. So that was it. No wonder when Sebastian and I married, my mother's eyes would fill with tears, as if through us she was seeing someone else. No wonder when I brought concubines to Sebastian, she became so furious, insisting that Sebastian and I maintain a relationship of one lifetime, one love, one couple. Finally, I also remembered what she had said back then. She said all her efforts to eliminate obstacles for me had been in vain. Before the Dragon Boat Festival, I returned to the capital. Seeing me return, my mother breathed a sigh of relief and discussed with father where we should go for the medicinal bath. Why don't we go to the springs at Shillam Slope? That place is nestled in the mountains with beautiful scenery, I suggested. My mother shook her head. That place is too far. This is just a formality anyway. Going somewhere closer would be more convenient. I think the Dong family springs are nearby. Going there would be easier. Father seemed dissatisfied. How can the Dong family springs compare to the springs at Shillam Slope? People come and go there. All sorts of officials and staff mixed together. I'm afraid you two will have to endure discomfort. But my mother remained insistent. I think that place is fine. After all, it's just going through the motions. No one actually goes to bathe in medicinal herbs. Father was somewhat annoyed. I actually want to bathe. The imperial hot springs are only available once a year. You two truly don't know how to enjoy yourselves. On the day of the festival, Mother and I accompanied Father to the springs. My mother suggested Father go bathe in the medicinal herbs while she would take me for a walk around. Though the Dong family springs were simple, they occupied a vast area with over 40 hot spring pools of various sizes. Many officials and their wives only came as a formality, strolling around, washing their hands and faces with the herbal spring water, then considered they had completed the medicinal bathing ritual and dispelled impurities. Eleanor, there seems to be someone ahead. Let's go there to get towels to wipe our faces. My mother led me deeper into the bathing area, pointing toward a pool obscured by trees. That place was indeed quite quiet. I nodded and was about to step forward when I heard my mother suddenly cry out, "Oh, I've lost my sachet. It must have fallen along the way. Eleanor, you go ahead. I'll search for it and join you shortly." The springs had guards and commoners couldn't enter. Moreover, I had maids and nannies accompanying me, so nothing would happen. I smiled in response. "Yes, I'll wait for Mother." When we approached the pool, a maid said, "Young miss, there's tea and pastries on the table over there. We'll go fetch some and return shortly." I nodded. "Go quickly and come back." After everyone left, I immediately signaled to one of the accompanying nannies. She used a swift strike to knock out the remaining maid, then dragged her behind a tree. I also concealed myself. The nanny quickly took out a small package from inside her clothing, picked up a large stone from the ground, tied the stone and package together, then threw them into the pool. Water in the pool was steaming. There was just a splash, impossible to tell what had fallen in. Then another splash sounded. The corner of my mouth curved into a smile. Not long after, my mother slowly walked over. Seeing me still standing safely by the pool, she seemed slightly surprised. Looking around, she didn't see the maid who had been knocked unconscious. "Where's little Hong?" my mother asked. "It was too hot. She fainted from the steam. I had someone take her to rest." A flash of anger crossed my mother's face, then she looked toward the pool. A gentle breeze blew past, dispersing the layer of steam on the pool's surface. It seemed there was someone in the pool. My mother looked carefully, her expression beginning to show panic. Someone, quickly save them. She cried out in alarm. I stood to the side with arms crossed, smiling as I watched my mother call for help. The person pulled from the water was none other than Sebastian. He had somehow lost consciousness in the pool. Also retrieved were several bath towels and robes used for medicinal bathing. Due to soaking too long in the water and inhaling too much of the medicinal herbs in the spring water, Sebastian suffered damage to his lungs and heart, becoming a cripple. My mother received quite a shock. Was she truly ill? I went to visit. She grasped my hand tightly and said, "Eleanor, Sebastian has ended up like this. In the future, I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to marry. He's truly pitiable. You've had a compassionate heart since childhood. Why don't you marry him?" I withdrew my hand from my mother's grasp and replied coldly, "He ended up like this entirely by his own doing. If he hadn't harbored evil intentions and lurked secretly by the bathing pool, how would he have come to this?" My mother's eyes widened at me. "You knew everything all along." They had already put a large amount of bone, nourishing herbal powder into the bathing pool, mixed with sulfur in the hot spring water. Anyone who inhaled it for a short time would gradually lose consciousness. If I had accidentally fallen into the pool at that time, Sebastian would have appeared to rescue me. After diagnosis, the physicians would conclude that I had fainted from bathing in medicinal herbs too long. Without timely rescue, my life would have been in danger. Life-saving grace, accompanied by physical contact when falling into the water. I would find it difficult not to marry Sebastian. That was the plan my mother had arranged together with Lady Margaret. What I had to do was simply turn their own scheme against them. In the cloth package I threw into the water, there wasn't just excessive bone, nourishing powder, but also a large amount of sulfur powder. When the package fell into the water, Sebastian thought I had fallen in and immediately jumped down to save me. But after just a few breaths, he lost consciousness. The water in the pool was circulating hot water flowing continuously. By the time he was rescued, the herbal powder in the water had already been washed away by the current. Everyone would only think he fainted from soaking in medicinal water too long. I simply used their own plan against them. You are truly ruthless. My mother ground her teeth and pointed at me. How am I more ruthless than you, mother? I responded calmly. The fire at Catherine's house, the bandits at North Mountain. Weren't those all caused by you, mother? You had Lady Qin bring Lady Yuan to the banquet, then bribed Chef Mei to add charcoal powder to start the fire, then lured Charlotte to the library. Little Hong was your person, wasn't she? When the fire broke out, she deliberately led me to a hidden corner to delay my escape time. Fortunately, my life was strong. Even though I was pinned by the beam, I still managed to escape. My mother shook her head. I didn't expect the beam would fall. Eleanor, I didn't want to harm you. I only wanted you to smoothly marry into the Thorne family. The one who wanted to marry into the Thorne family was you, mother, not me. Isn't that right? I coldly exposed her. It's you, mother, who has always longed to marry Uncle William, not me. I only wish the entire Thorne family would die. You know everything now. For a moment my mother showed signs of collapse, but immediately afterward, her eyes brightened again. Eleanor, you are mother's good daughter. Mother begs you to marry Sebastian. Consider it fulfilling mother's heartfelt wish, completing the regrets of years past. Would that be acceptable? My mother looked at me earnestly. I shook my head. Sebastian has nothing left now. To repay you for raising me and for what you've done to me, I will tell father that mother suffered mental trauma from the fire incident last time and needs to go to the estate to recuperate quietly. Last time, I already told father that mother was acting somewhat abnormal, her mind confused, her actions erratic. I told him to pay more attention. Tell your father. My mother's eyes turned cold. I advise you not to alarm him. His health is no longer what it used to be. Do you want to mention the recipe book Chef Mei gave me? Those incompatible food combinations. Deep hatred surged within me. In this entire affair, the most innocent person was father. His only mistake was marrying a madwoman like my mother, which caused him to die young in the previous life. My mother flew into a complete rage and advanced to strike me. Eleanor, you are my daughter, yet you side with them. It was they who prevented me from marrying into the Thorne family. I stepped back while calling for servants. Quickly summon someone. Send for the physician. Mother seems to be having another episode. The medicine from the traveling merchants was truly potent. A few doses of medicine added to my mother's tea had left her mind confused. Even the physicians couldn't diagnose the cause. I advised father that the capital was crowded and full of distractions, unsuitable for recuperation. It would be better to send mother to the estate to rest quietly. Once her condition improved, we could bring her home. Though father was heartbroken, he ultimately accepted my suggestion and sent mother to an estate near a temple. A year later, word came that mother had another episode and accidentally knocked over a candle, burning herself to death in her room. Father and I were deeply grieved, but life had to go on. Father asked my maternal family in the old capital to help find marriage prospects for me. That place was full of established noble families with many fine young talents. After some more time passed, news arrived from the Thorne family. A concubine surnamed Yuan, unable to endure the abuse from her in-laws, had poisoned the entire family's meal, causing many deaths. Sebastian survived only because he ate differently from the others. Seeing his entire family die tragically from poison, Sebastian coughed up several mouthfuls of blood, muttering, "It can't be like this, it can't be like this. My family was harmonious, full of wives and concubines, abundant with children and grandchildren. It can't be like this. Charlotte, you evil woman. It's all your fault. You're the one who should have died, it should have been you. I don't care anymore." Grandmother and Aunt Helen sent over several lists of prospective husbands, telling me to choose my own spouse. I found it all very bothersome. Catherine sent a letter describing the scenery and customs of the western regions, even inviting me to visit. I was greatly moved and immediately wrote back asking, "Do they have chicken to eat in the western regions?" Father's health was no longer a concern. I heard that recently the ministrates had retired to his hometown, and father was the most capable candidate to succeed him. Victory was truly becoming more hopeful by the day. Vivienne's chapter. One moment I was being consumed by flames, the next I had been reborn back to age 18. Father and everyone else wanted to marry me to the legitimate son of the Hartwell family. How could the legitimate grandson of the Hartwell family be worthy of me? In this world, aside from William, no one was qualified to marry me. In my previous life, I was forced onto the bridal sedan to marry Richard Hartwell, but I fundamentally didn't love him. After giving birth to a daughter, I no longer wanted any intimacy with him. Fortunately, my daughter was obedient. As she grew, she resembled me more and more. Looking at her was like seeing myself when I was young. At that plum blossom viewing gathering, I saw William's nephew Sebastian. He truly resembled William. At that moment, I decided to marry my daughter to him, just as I should have married William. But that detestable daughter of mine, she was just like her father. No matter how many schemes I devised, she stubbornly refused to obediently marry Sebastian. In the end, she even conspired with her father to send me to the estate. Heaven has eyes. It allowed me to be reborn. This time I absolutely will not marry Richard, nor will I give birth to that unfilial daughter. Eleanor, aren't you feeling quite pleased with yourself? In this life, I won't let you come into this world at all. Under cover of darkness, I donned a red wedding gown and scaled the wall to escape. This time, I must enter the Thorne household to maintain chastity for William. Drawing on memories from my previous life, I avoided all the routes that would be blocked and finally reached the Thorne estate. Though the Thorne family was quite shocked, they said nothing more and soon took me in. From that point on, I became a woman of the Thorne household. I was overjoyed beyond measure. I would definitely take William's place in being filial to his parents and caring for his family. The Thorne family had strict rules. Every day I had to wake at the hour of Mao to attend my mother-in-law while she dressed and washed. Not until the hour of high in the evening could I finish my busy work and return to my own courtyard. The eldest daughter-in-law was occupied caring for her young child, so all duties of serving the in-laws fell to me. I could understand this. Moreover, that child grew up to look exactly like William. Everyone praised me for my righteousness. The Thorne family even said they would submit a memorial to the court requesting they bestow upon me a chastity monument. My parents couldn't say anything about what I had done to allow me to live peacefully in the Thorne household. They had helped many descendants of the Thorne family. Wasn't this wonderful? The two families harmonious. I had also fulfilled my vow to William. In the 4th year after marrying into the Thorne family, my parents left home for the old capital. Before parting, My mother worried about me and wanted me to come with them to the old capital. Was she joking? I was born a person of the Thorne family. In death, I would be a ghost of the Thorne family. After my family moved away, my in-laws became even more harsh with me. In the sweltering summer heat, my mother-in-law said there were mosquitoes in her room. She couldn't stand the smell of mosquito incense, yet said hanging a bed curtain was too stuffy, so she ordered me to stand by her bed all night fanning away mosquitoes. At midday, after father-in-law finished his meal, he required a bowl of chilled mung bean soup to relieve the heat. However, due to his advanced age, he couldn't consume anything too cold. The soup needed to have a thin layer of ice on top, taken from the ice cellar. Along the way, as the thin ice layer melted, the temperature would be just right. Therefore, at every mealtime, I had to hold the bowl of mung bean soup and stand in the ice cellar, shivering as I waited for it to form a thin layer of ice, then carry it out under the scorching sun to deliver to my father-in-law. Once or twice was fine, but every single day like this, I couldn't bear it anymore. So I begged my mother-in-law for mercy, but she scolded me for being unfilial, saying I wasn't worthy of being a daughter-in-law of the Thorne family and wanted to cast me out. I was terrified and hastily apologized, but in my heart, regret gradually took root. In the years I was married to Richard, I lived leisurely and comfortably. I had never set foot in the kitchen, never held needle and thread. Later, my in-laws became increasingly excessive, always finding ways to torment me. Even the servants looked down on me. The grandson I cherished most, Sebastian, even beat me. Why was this happening? The Thorne family was a family of loyal martyrs. I understood their strict household rules, but I didn't understand why they treated me this way. Had I done something wrong? As the abuse from the Thorne family increased, I began to feel regret. I secretly returned to the Hartwell estate to visit and saw that Richard had married. His wife was dignified and virtuous. They even had a daughter who, though she didn't resemble Eleanor in appearance, spoke and gestured exactly like her. Because I had left the estate without permission. Upon returning to the Thorne household, I was beaten within an inch of my life. Finally, I exploded in anger and confronted them. I also come from a prestigious family. Why am I being abused like this? The eldest daughter-in-law stood to the side and laughed with contempt. Didn't you demean yourself? Who forced you to come here in the beginning? Fearing I would seek help from my relatives in the old capital, the Thorne family even locked me in the woodshed, feeding me only leftover scraps each day. To the outside world, everyone believed I was living in seclusion to maintain chastity for William. Thanks to my chaste reputation, the Thorne family received much praise. That day, in my disheveled state, taking advantage of a servant forgetting to lock the door, I secretly escaped. I removed the only bracelet I owned and pawned it for money, then went to an apothecary to buy a packet of rat poison. Before the Thorne family discovered I was missing, I snuck into the kitchen and put the rat poison in the pot of congee. Regrettably, that pot of congee didn't kill the Thorne family. Instead, they discovered it and beat me until I was barely alive. In my dying moments, I seemed to see flames again. If possible, I didn't want to return anymore. Just let me die in that fire. This tale reveals how obsession and unfulfilled desire can poison not just one life, but generations. Vivienne's inability to accept reality transformed love into madness, sacrificing her daughter's happiness to fulfill her own fantasy. Eleanor's journey shows that breaking free from toxic cycles requires recognizing manipulation, even from those closest to us. True strength lies in choosing our own path, not living someone else's unlived dreams. Some debts of gratitude become chains when imposed by those with hidden agendas. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.